A few months ago, I took my camera out on a drive through the country. It was a quiet night. I liked the stillness outside the busy city. I thought it would be peaceful, a good time to capture the night sky. I was still new to photography, but felt confident. As I drove, I noticed the moonlight struggling to shine through the trees. The asphalt twisted ahead of me. Shadows stretched across the road like fingers. I felt uneasy driving past old farmhouses. They were silent and dark, their windows like empty eyes. There was one barn that caught my eye. I spotted a flicker of light escaping from the cracked doors. I thought it was strange, but curiosity pulled me in. I parked my car and stepped outside. The night was cold, and I shivered slightly. As I walked toward the barn, I heard soft whispers. It felt like the wind wanted to tell me something. I thought maybe I was too tired and shrugged it off. The next night, I went back. I couldn't stop thinking about the barn. The whispers were louder this time, almost like they had something to say. I wasn't sure if it was just my mind playing tricks on me or something else. I started having dreams of a woman. She looked upset. Each night I felt a connection to her, but I couldn't understand why. It was unsettling, but I kept going back for more photos. Later, I checked my camera at home, but some images confused me. They showed scenes I didn't remember capturing. There was sadness in them. The barn felt oddly familiar, but I didn't know why. On my last night driving, I decided to visit the barn once more. I parked outside. The whispers wrapped around me like a shadow. I stepped inside, and the air turned colder. I saw dark shapes shifting in the corners. The atmosphere felt thick, like the barn was holding its breath. My heart was racing. That's when I saw her. The woman from my dreams stood in front of me. Our eyes locked. Her voice was a gentle whisper, but I couldn't understand what she said. It felt like she was asking for help. Before I could react, she disappeared, leaving me in darkness again. I stood there, confused and scared. The silence pressed down on me. Was it just my mind, or had I walked into something real? I stumbled out of the barn, feeling like I had disturbed something I should not have. The cold air hit me hard as I got in my car. I drove away, glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her again. The whispers faded, but I felt them lingering in my mind. I still can't shake off that night. The barn haunts my thoughts in strange ways. I didn't find answers then, and I'm not sure I want to find them now. I just drive past in silence and wonder what really happened that night. The next few days were rough. I couldn't focus on anything. The barn haunted my thoughts like a persistent shadow. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman's face. Her pleading look stuck with me like an itch I couldn't scratch. I tried to ignore it. I went back to my routine, but nothing felt normal. My camera sat quietly next to my desk, almost mocking me. It was inviting, yet frightening. I decided to take it out again. Maybe I needed to go back, just one more time. On the following Friday, I drove out to the barn again. The road felt longer this time. I twisted my fingers on the steering wheel, trying to shake the unease. As I neared the barn, I took a deep breath, convinced that I could face whatever was inside. It was just an old building, nothing to be afraid of, right? When I parked, the whispers returned immediately. They were louder, almost angry now. Ignoring them, I stepped outside. The chill in the air had sharpened, sending shivers down my spine. I approached the barn, my heart thudding in time with each step. Inside, the shadows danced along the walls. I felt something tugging at my shirt, like a cold hand brushing against my back. I spun around, but there was nothing there, just empty space. Anxiety rolled in, but curiosity overpowered my fear. I lifted my camera, hoping to capture something, anything to make sense of it all. I snapped a few pictures, the flashes illuminated the darkness, and that's when I noticed it. A wooden box in the corner that hadn't been there before. It looked ancient, dusty, and locked tight. I approached it, my heart pounding. There was something about it that felt important. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash from outside. It echoed around the barn, making the walls shudder. I jumped, nearly dropping my camera. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but I was drawn to the box. I walked over, pushing my fears aside. I wanted to see what was inside. Just as I reached for it, a whisper cut through the air, clearer than before. "Help me." The voice sounded like the woman, urgent and desperate. I stumbled back, heart racing again. What did she need help with? I turned to flee, but the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. Panic clawed at my chest. I banged on the door, but only silence answered. The box loomed large in my vision. I felt that if I didn't open it, I wouldn't escape. With trembling hands, I fumbled for the latch. My breath quickened. I pulled at it, and to my surprise, the lock gave way. The box creaked open slightly. Just when I thought I would find answers, the lights flickered, and everything went black. The last thing I heard was the woman's voice, clearer than ever. "You shouldn't have come back." I woke up in darkness, confusion clouding my mind. My body felt heavy, and a dull ache pulsed in my temples. I blinked, trying to adjust to the dim light. The barn was still there, but now I was on the floor, next to the opened box. The whispering had stopped, but a different sound filled the void. It was a low, soft sobbing, echoing in the cold air. Fear shot through me, urging me to scramble to my feet. I switched on my camera's flashlight, pointing it toward the sound. The beam swept across the room, but revealed nothing but shadows. I took a deep breath. I had to know what was going on. I edged closer to the box. My heart thrummed in my chest as I forced myself to look inside. There was nothing but dirt, and a few scattered, aged trinkets. A rusted pocket watch, a tarnished key that glimmered faintly, and an intricately woven bracelet that looked strange but familiar somehow. I picked up the watch. It felt cold against my skin, and when I turned it over, I saw initials engraved on the back. J.W. That name again, I muttered to myself. It was the same name I found in the barn's records weeks ago. A sense of urgency washed over me. Whoever this was, they were connected to the woman. I needed answers. Just as I pocketed the key, the sobbing grew louder. It echoed through the barn, wrapping around me like a shroud. I shouted, "Who's there?" My voice felt small in the vast emptiness. No answer came, but the sound intensified, as if it were mocking me. I turned back toward the barn door, searching for a way out, when something caught my eye under one of the stalls. It was a figure, curled up in the shadows. My heart raced. It looked human, but was it? I moved toward it cautiously, flashlight beam trembling. As I got closer, I could see the outline of a woman. Her hair was disheveled, and her face was hidden, but I could feel an overwhelming sadness radiating from her. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice wavering. She slowly lifted her head, and I was met with eyes filled with despair. "You shouldn't have opened it," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "What did I open?" I wanted to scream, but instead I stepped closer, compelled by her gaze. "The box! It's a trap!" She shuddered, pointing at it weakly. "You must." Before she could finish, the barn shook and the lights flickered again. Chaos erupted as dust fell from the rafters above. I staggered back, realizing something was coming. The whispers returned, louder, swirling around us like a storm. "Run!" she screamed, but I froze, unable to process everything. Then I saw it. A figure emerging from the darkness surrounding her, a tall silhouette with glowing eyes. I turned and bolted toward the door, my heart pounding like a drum. I could feel the air grow colder around me, and with every step, the sobbing seemed to shift into laughter, mocking my desperation. I reached for the door, yanking at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped. The darkness pressed against me, thick and suffocating. I slammed my shoulder against the door again and again, but it wouldn't yield. I had to get out. That's when I heard the voice again, weaving through the chaos. "Help me!" I glanced back at the woman, but she was gone. The barn grew quiet for a moment as I stared in shock. Had I imagined her? I had to find another way. I turned toward the back of the barn, searching for anything that might help me escape. Just as I did, I felt a cold breath on my neck, and my stomach dropped. Someone was behind me. I was not alone anymore. I spun around, half expecting to see the figure from before, but there was only darkness. The barn loomed around me, creaking and groaning like a living thing. Anxiety clawed at my throat as I felt the weight of unseen eyes on me. I had to act. I rushed to the nearest window, pushing aside the rusted latch. It opened with a stubborn creak, but the cold night air was a welcome relief against my sweaty skin. I peered outside. Mist rolled across the ground, blanketing the fields in a thick layer of gray. It looked so inviting compared to the horrors inside the barn. But just as quickly as hope surged, a low growl echoed from the shadows. I turned, heart racing. The glowing eyes emerged again, now accompanied by the sound of footfalls that didn't belong to me. They were heavy and deliberate, each step a reminder of the danger lurking close. I backed away from the window, scanning the barn walls for another way out. My flashlight flickered as if in response to my terror. I moved toward the back, where I noticed a half-open trap door leading beneath the floor. It was dim, but I could see faint outlines of old wooden beams and a staircase descending into darkness. I hesitated. What if it's worse down there? My mind churned with possibilities. But as I glanced back, the eyes were nearer, the growl deeper. There was no choice. I sprinted to the trapdoor. Silence filled the air, suddenly ominous. As I pulled it open, the cold draft of the earth below chilled my bones. I slid down the stairs, landing softly on the ground. My flashlight cut through the black, illuminating dirt walls in an old wooden crate in the corner. I noticed faint markings etched into the walls, symbols, carvings that looked ancient. I took a step closer, curiosity overtaking fear. But my heart sank as I recognized a pattern. They were symbols from my research into the barn's history. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed above, making me jump. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. Heavy footsteps thundered on the floorboards above where I had just come from. The thing was looking for me. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement near the crate. A glimmer caught my attention, and I crept closer. It was another key, identical to the one I had picked up earlier. My fingers brushed the cold metal, and a faint pulse of warmth radiated from it. I clutched it tightly, a strange sense of urgency igniting within me. What did it unlock? I barely had time to ponder when a shadow passed overhead and I dropped to the floor, holding my breath. The footsteps got closer, and I could hear heavy breathing mixed with low, guttural sounds. I glanced up and caught a glimpse of a figure standing at the trapdoor, silhouetted against the weak light above. With a surge of adrenaline, I made a decision. I had to escape further into the dark. I sprinted toward the other wall, where a shallow tunnel began. My only hope was to find a way out, away from whatever that was. As I crawled through, the sound of the figure's growls echoed behind me. My heart pounded in my ears. Would the tunnel lead me to safety or deeper into the unknown? I had no way of knowing, but there was no turning back now. As I crawled through the tunnel, the damp earth clung to my hands and knees. I had to keep moving, the sound of that creature too close behind me. The growl morphed into a low rumble, vibrating through the walls. I felt exposed, like a small animal in a predator's den. The tunnel narrowed, and I had to squeeze through a tight spot. Panic surged as I stumbled against a sharp stone. I pressed on, each scrape against my skin feeding the fire of urgency in my veins. Then, just when I thought I'd make it out, I heard something unexpected. A whisper, almost too quiet to catch. It dripped through the silence, sending a chill down my spine. "Help!" The voice was familiar. I crawled faster, the darkness around me growing heavy with dread. The whisper came again, echoing through the tunnel. "Please, help me!" I skidded to a stop. "Who are you?" I called, my voice barely louder than a breath. Silence answered back, thick and stifling. I felt a pulse of hope, tangled with fear. Could someone else be down here? Could they help me? "Is someone there?" I pressed again, but my words only hung in the air, unanswered. Time felt suspended, as if the world was holding its breath with me. I gathered my courage and pushed forward, continuing down the tunnel. The dampness enveloped me, and I felt the walls closing in. Then I spotted a faint light ahead, flickering like a candle in the distance. Hope surged once more, and I quickened my pace. As I drew closer, the light revealed a small opening in the wall. I could hear the whispers again, more than one voice now. They were pleading, urgent. I reached the opening and peered inside. What I saw made me recoil. The narrow chamber was lined with chains, and shadows danced against the rough stone walls. Figures huddled together, their gazes hollow and pleading. They were trapped, just like I had been. "Help us!" one of them cried, reaching out. "They'll come back!" My heart sank. Panic wrapped around me like a vice. Who will come back?" "Don't stay! Run!" another voice shouted, trembling with urgency. But I couldn't move. I stared into their haunted eyes, recognizing the fear reflected there. I took a step back, intent on escaping this nightmare, but the growls from behind reminded me of my only real danger. I turned and bolted down the tunnel. The sounds were louder now, more than just the figure that had been hunting me. There were others. I had to move. As I dashed down the dark passage, the walls seemed to pulse with energy. I stumbled upon something sharp, another trap door, barely noticeable at my feet. I pulled it open without hesitation and jumped through, landing in a new space. Darkness enveloped me again, but I could hear the faint echo of the whispers fading away. The growls grew distant, but I knew they wouldn't give up easily. I could feel their presence lurking in the shadows, hunting me down as I searched for a way to escape. Then, everything went dark. I gasped as I hit the ground. Cold air prickled my skin, and I struggled to orient myself in the pitch black. My heart raced, pounding in my ears as I pushed myself up and scanned my surroundings. I couldn't tell if I was in another tunnel or some sort of open space. My vision adjusted slowly. There were faint outlines of shapes around me, maybe rocks or debris. I took a cautious step, then another, trying to keep quiet. The last thing I needed was to attract attention. That's when I heard it, a soft shuffling sound, not far from where I stood. I froze, listening intently. It sounded like something or someone was moving. My pulse quickened. "Hello?" I whispered. I heard my own voice tremble back at me, swallowed by the darkness. Silence lingered for a moment, heavy and thick. Then a soft gasp came from the shadows. "Please, help me," a voice pleaded, breaking the stillness. The tone was fragile, almost childlike. "Where are you?" I asked, wishing I hadn't. My own voice seemed to echo in the emptiness. "Over here," the voice came again, sounding weaker this time. I stepped cautiously toward it, panic fighting inside me. I wanted to help, but part of me wondered if this was just a trap. As I moved closer, shapes began to appear in the dim light. I could finally make out a figure huddled against the wall, hands shackled. It seemed to be a young girl staring up at me with wide, terrified eyes. "They'll return," she warned, breathless with fear. "You have to find a way out, please, before they come." "Who?" I pressed, but she raised a shaky finger to her lips, signaling for silence. I glanced around us. The sound of claws scraping against stone made my stomach drop. My instinct screamed for me to run, but I lingered, caught between the urgency to help and the need to escape. "We have to go," I urged, reaching for her wrist. "No," she cried, pulling away. "They'll hear us." I felt the air shift. Something was close. I turned to look, something in my gut telling me the shadows were not just figments of the dark. I could feel the menace creeping in. I can't leave you here," I stammered, panic clawing at my throat. "There has to be a way." "Leave now," she insisted, her eyes wide with desperation. "You can still escape." Without thinking, I weighed the option. My mind screamed at me to run, to save myself from whatever horrors were coming, but I felt a pull toward her, an unwilling tether. Then I heard a growl, a deep, guttural sound that rumbled through the walls, sending shivers down my spine. I turned back to the girl, but she was gone, the darkness swallowing her whole. In that moment, I made my decision. I spun around and sprinted back the way I came, heart racing. A terrible thought hit me. What if I was leaving her to face whatever was coming? That thought gnawed at me as I charged down the tunnel, desperate for a way out. But as I ran, I could sense that I was not alone. Shadows flitted at the corner of my vision, closing in. I had to keep moving, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a grave mistake. Turning back was not an option. What waited behind me was far worse than what lay ahead. Then, out of nowhere, a hand shot out from the darkness, grabbing my arm. I gasped as I was pulled into an alcove just as the growls intensified. "Quiet," a voice hissed, tension threading through the air. I froze in place, caught in a fresh wave of fear. And then, everything went dark again. I blinked, trying to adjust to the darkness again. The grip on my arm was firm, but not painful. Whoever had pulled me into the alcove remained hidden, their presence just a few inches away. I felt their breath, shallow and rapid, brushing against my face. "Stay quiet," the voice whispered again. "They can hear everything." My instincts kicked in, but I was paralyzed, trying to gauge the situation. I shifted slightly to see who my rescuer was, but the shadows kept their identity concealed. I wanted to ask who they were, but fear knotted itself in my throat. A faint scraping sound echoed from the tunnel entrance, the growls closer now. My heart beat wildly as the intensity of the noise made my skin crawl. I wanted to scream, to drown out those sounds, but I bit down on my lip, fighting the urge. "They'll smell you," the voice warned, harsh but urgent. "Just breathe softly, let them pass." I nodded, though I doubted they could see me. I held my breath, trying to mute the sound of my racing heart. It felt as if time stretched, each second dragging out painfully. The growling morphed into guttural snarls, echoing off the walls. I willed myself to be silent. That's when I caught a glimpse of motion beyond the shadows. The faintest outline of something large and sinewy slinked along the edge of the darkness, pausing at moments as if it was listening to something, or someone. "Please, don't move," my captor said, their breath hitching. A chill raced down my spine. I had expected the growls to fade away, perhaps to give way to silence, but the creature lingered, sniffing the air, its ghastly posture hunched low. Suddenly, a slip of light illuminated the alcove, spilling through a crack in the rock. My heart leapt as I saw the features of my rescuer. It was a young man, maybe a few years older than me. His eyes were wild, glistening with fear and resolve. "Who are you?" I finally whispered, not wanting to disturb whatever was outside. "Not important. Just don't make a sound," he hissed sharply. Another rustle came from the entrance. The creature was moving closer, muscles rippling under its skin. It was searching for us. My instincts screamed that we had to move, while fear rooted me in place. I risked a glance at the stranger, hoping for some sign of hope. "Prepare to run," he whispered, a touch of command in his voice. Just when I thought I could take action, the growling stopped, replaced by a deep, unsettling growl that vibrated around me. I felt it in my bones, a promise of impending danger. Then, without warning, the creature lunged into the alcove, its powerful figure stepping into the light. I barely had time to comprehend its jagged teeth before the boy yanked my arm, pulling me back, aiming for the exit. "Now!" he shouted, and we scrambled into the shadows. I didn't know where to run or if there was a way out. Panic erupted inside me again as the shadows began to close in. That was when I heard another voice, this one choked with urgency. "Help!" It was the girl from before. "Stay close," I gasped, desperate not to abandon someone else in need. But as I turned back, I saw only the darkness looming behind us. "Wait! We have to find her!" I shouted into the abyss, but the boy just pulled me harder as we dashed down the tunnel, the echoing sounds of pursuit hot on our heels. The urgency gnawed at me. How could I have left her behind? Then I spotted a faint glimmer ahead. A tunnel branched off to the right. "This way!" I pointed, but the boy hesitated, confusion flitting across his features. And before I knew it, the decision was made for us. A feral howl pierced the air, loud enough to shatter glass. The howl echoed in my ears, a warning that shot adrenaline straight into my veins. I barely had time to think as I yanked the boy's arm, urging him towards the right tunnel. "We have to go!" Without looking back, we plunged into the branching path, darkness swallowing us whole. The sound of our hurried footsteps echoed, but the howling was still too close, a reminder that we were being hunted. "Do you think we lost it?" I panted, struggling to keep up with him. My mind raced with questions, but fear fogged my thoughts. I needed to focus on putting distance between us and whatever that creature was. "I don't know," he replied, glancing over his shoulder. His eyes darted nervously. "Just keep moving." The tunnel narrowed, forcing us closer together. The damp chill of the air surrounded us, and I could hear the dripping of water somewhere in the darkness. I strained to catch any sound behind us. The growls were quieter now, but they lingered, a constant reminder of the danger we were in. Then we passed through a small opening, a wider chamber that opened up unexpectedly. My feet stumbled as we crossed the threshold, my heart sinking at the sight. The walls were marked with scratches, deep gouges that looked too precise, too deliberate. "What happened here?" I asked, my voice trembling as I scanned the walls. "Just keep your eyes forward," the boy ordered, his tone harsh. "We can't stop now." We pressed further into the chamber, but my eyes could not escape the stories etched in the stone. It seemed almost as if something had escaped. Suddenly, I heard a scraping noise from deeper inside the cavern. My breath caught. It grew louder, almost rhythmic, like something or someone was dragging themselves through the darkness. "What is that?" I whispered, my stomach twisting in knots. "I said, don't look," he snapped, but it was too late. My eyes had already widened in horror, taking in the shadows that seemed to twist and pulse. I felt the panic rise again, clawing at me. The sounds stopped abruptly, plunging us back into an uneasy silence. The boy's grip tightened on my arm. "Please, keep moving." Just then, a low growl broke through the stillness, rumbling from the depths of the chamber. It reverberated in my chest, a chilling reminder that we weren't safe yet. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. It was a girl I recognized. "Help!" she gasped, her eyes wide with fear. But the relief I felt vanished when I saw the creature closing in behind her, its eyes glowing in the near darkness. Before I could react, the creature lunged again, leaving no time for thought. I turned to run, adrenaline pushing me forward. "Go! Go!" I shouted, but the boy hesitated. "Wait! What about her?" His eyes flickered back to the girl, desperate. "Forget her!" I screamed, though my heart ached. "We need to escape!" And just like that, the chamber echoed with chaos as the growl of the creature deepened, drowning out my thoughts. The shadows shifted behind us, and I felt it. Something horrible was lurking, ready to pounce. Then, everything went dark. I gasped as I crashed into the ground, my body scrambling to regroup in the utter darkness. I felt a dreadful weight in the air. It was stifling. My breath came in quick, shallow bursts, and I could hear nothing but the pounding of my heart. "Are you okay?" The boy's voice broke through the silence, shaky but insistent. "I don't know," I managed to whisper. Panic coursed through my veins as I pushed myself up, my hands finding the rough earth beneath me. Where were we? Had we escaped the creature, or was it still hunting us? I strained to listen, to pick up any sign of danger. In the stillness, I heard nothing except the distant drip of water. I spoke, though my voice was a raspy whisper. "We have to keep moving." The boy nodded, and together we stumbled into the thick darkness, our hands brushing against the cold, damp walls as we navigated this unseen labyrinth. With every step, fear gnawed at me. What had happened in the chamber? And what about the girl? Had she made it out? We trudged deeper, the tunnel seeming to stretch endlessly. I couldn't shake the image of the glowing eyes from my mind. What was that thing? How could something so terrifying exist in a place so familiar? After what felt like an eternity, we reached the end of the tunnel and found ourselves staring at another chamber, though this one was smaller and less foreboding. I squinted, trying to see if we could find another path. As I moved forward, I noticed a glimmer on the floor. "Hey, look!" I pointed toward the ground. "There's something there!" The boy bent down, brushing aside dirt and debris. His fingers revealed a tattered backpack, worn and faded. "This must belong to someone," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He opened it, revealing contents strewn about: a small flashlight, a water bottle, and a crumpled piece of paper. "Take the flashlight," I urged, my heart racing with both excitement and dread. We needed all the help we could get. He nodded again, fumbling to switch it on. The weak beam flickered to life, casting shaky shadows across the walls. I grabbed the water bottle and took a sip, its coolness refreshing, but tinged with the realization that we might be stuck here for a while. Suddenly, the flashlight beam caught something in the corner. A movement. My stomach dropped as I peered into the corner of the chamber. A figure hunched over, blending into the shadows. "Who's there?" I called, trying to disguise the tremor in my voice. The figure twisted around, revealing a gaunt face with hollow eyes full of terror. It was another girl like us, lost and scared. "Please," she said, desperate, "you have to help me. I can't stay here." Before I could respond, I sensed a shift in the air, a stirring that signaled something terrible was approaching. The growl echoed again, a chilling reminder of our pursuit. "Run!" I shouted, pushing the boy forward. The girl followed, eyes wide with fear. As we fled into the narrow passage beyond the chamber, I could feel the creature's presence closing in, ready to hunt us down once more. Dread filled my mind, mixing with the urgency to escape. Every second counted. I had to find a way out of this nightmare before it was too late. The twisted tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, the air thick with tension and the echoes of our hurried footsteps. I couldn't quite shake the feeling that the darkness itself was watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. There was a desperate energy in the air, both invigorating and terrifying. I led the way, the feeble beam of the flashlight illuminating just enough of our surroundings to avoid tripping over unseen obstacles. The girl behind me, eyes wide and frantic, pushed closer to the boy, who glanced back anxiously. "Stay close," he urged, his voice strained. Fear gripped my heart. I couldn't lose anyone else. As we plunged deeper into the darkness, the growls from before returned, closer now, more menacing. It was just a matter of time before it caught up to us. My mind raced, piecing together what had happened, what or who we were running from. "What's out there?" I panted, unable to keep the tremor from my voice. "Something hungry," the boy replied, his eyes scanning our surroundings for any sign of an escape. Before I could respond, the sound of claws scraping against stone echoed nearby. The growls were punctuated now with a sort of wild anticipation, as if whatever hunted us was delighted at our fear, drawing closer with each frantic step. "Over here!" I shouted, darting toward a narrow side passage I had spotted ahead. "This way!" We squeezed through the tight opening, barely able to fit in a single line. I held the flashlight steady, the beam exposing rough walls that seemed to close in around us. My heart hammered in my chest, matching the quick breaths from the others as they followed suit. "Do you think that will lead us out?" the girl asked breathlessly, casting a worried glance back toward the darkness. "I hope so," I replied, willing the tunnel to open up into daylight. "We can't stay here." Suddenly, the ground beneath us began to tremble, a deafening roar echoing through the passage. The growl had turned into savage laughter, and I could feel the malevolence pressing in. It fed off our fear. "We must keep moving," I urged. Fate seemed to twist around each of us. The end of the tunnel opened up abruptly into a larger cavern. My heart sank. The growls echoed again. The creature was too close now, too relentless. We paused momentarily at the threshold, scanning our surroundings. The cavern was filled with rough rock formations, stalactites hanging precariously overhead. In the far corner, there was an opening, a small tunnel that offered a sliver of what could be our escape, but shadows lingered like dark whispers. "We go that way," I insisted, gesturing toward the small passage, my voice steadier than I felt. "If we can get there before it catches up." But before I could finish my sentence, the ground seemed to shake beneath us, and the air filled with a terrifying howl that reverberated through the cavern, drowning out every thought in my mind. "Run!" the boy screamed, yanking the girl's arm, and I didn't need to be told twice. We surged forward, weaving through the rock formations that loomed like giants. As we dashed toward the opening, I could feel the sensation of dread wrapping tighter around my chest. But beneath it all, I sensed something, a stirring presence, a multitude of souls trapped within these walls. The same whispers I'd heard before began to fill my mind. They took form, threading through my thoughts. "Not again!" I instinctively shouted as I ran, the urgency fueling me forward. I could hear their cries, the desperation rising in harmony with the growing distance between us and whatever lurked behind. "Hold on!" I yelled, pushing on, but the cavern felt endless, and the shadows elongated around us. Would we find another way out, or were we simply running into a corner where all paths would lead to doom? I took one last look behind me, my heart racing, before I turned my focus back to what lay ahead. The passage loomed closer. I could almost taste freedom. Almost, but not quite. "Go!" I pushed forward with all my strength, adrenaline surging. And then, just as hope flickered within me, it happened. The growl erupted behind us, ferocious and terrifying. The darkness around us bursting to life as the creature lunged forward with a speed that left no room for hesitation. Something inside me snapped, and without a second thought, I leaped towards the tunnel's opening, feeling the rough edge kiss my side as I propelled myself through it. The last remnants of light flared behind me, consumed by darkness. I tumbled through the opening into a different world. A soft swell of air greeted me, cool and refreshing, but it quickly faded as I scrambled to my feet and looked back. The boy and the girl followed me, tumbling in right after. But just as the creature's growl reverberated one last time in a primal roar, I felt it, that sense of being watched, of being followed. We stood in silence for a brief moment, breathless and in shock, allowing our surroundings to sink in. We were outside. The barn towered behind us, a dark silhouette against the midnight sky. But as we gained our bearings, the danger hadn't completely vanished. "What now?" the girl asked, voice tremoring with uncertainty. I glanced back at the looming structure. "What about the others, the ones in the chains?" My mind raced, replaying the faces of those who remained trapped. The boy's expression darkened, and regret coursed through me. "We can't go back," he said, his voice firm but shaking. "If we do, we'll face whatever is still in there." We should have stayed. We should have fought harder. But the reality pressed against us like the weight of gravity, steering us away from that darkness and toward the inevitabilities of survival. I felt sick with guilt. How many were still trapped? Was there any hope for them? But even as we stood there, uncertainty gripped us all. What had truly happened in that barn? Had we really escaped? Or was this merely the beginning of something darker? As the night stretched on, the whispers faded, but I could still feel their haunting presence. Would I ever rid myself of the scar that experience left behind? Would I even want to, knowing it had shaped me, that moment in time when I confronted the shadows? I moved forward, step by tentative step, not knowing where this journey would take us next, or if we'd discover the truth one day, or if that truth was better left buried. The road stretched out before us, under the vast night sky. The questions lingered as deeply in my soul as the shadows of the barn loomed overhead, hinting that the mystery was far from finished.